The following interview is with Staci Warden, the CEO of the ALGORAND Foundation. First off, I'd like to thank Staci, JT, John Allen Woods, and everyone at the ALGORAND Foundation who made this interview possible. Secondly, if Staci or myself, if we seem distracted or we're looking around on this interview, that is because we originally did this interview live on a Twitter space, and I wanted to explain that for anyone watching who didn't listen to the space. Lastly, I want to give my full respect and thoughts and prayers to Staci Warden, who was not feeling well the day of the interview. And, we offered if she didn't want to do it. She said, no, let's do it. We soldiered through the interview. She did a really great job. And we found out the next day that she actually tested positive for COVID-19. And the fact that she soldiered through the interview not feeling well at all is a testament to her dedication to ALGORAND and the ALGORAND family. And the fact that she went through it is really, that's the spirit of Staci, and that's also the spirit of ALGORAND. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Matt, you with the week 12 portfolio
Havoc cycle has worked out every time. And, what is the ultimate goal for ALGORAND, and where do you see it in 5 years? Oh, good. Today, I have the honor of interviewing the CEO of the ALGORAND Foundation, the queen of ALGORAND herself, Staci Warden. Staci, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
I'm super happy to be here. I'm a little feverish though, because I'm a little sick. So if I don't make any sense, it's some kind of a weird fever dream maybe I'm having. But I'm going to rally for this for sure.
Okay. It's all good. It's all good. Thank you for being here. Thank you for soldiering through it. I really, really do appreciate that. And everyone here appreciates that as well. So I do want to start with this. I did ask John a similar question on a scale of 1 to 10. But last week when we talked, you told me you would not do this interview unless it was spicy. So on a scale of honey barbecue to wild mango habanero, how spicy are you feeling today?
I don't know about the mango part, but definitely I could go a little spicy for sure. Why not?
Okay, I love it. I love it. So here's the thing. We do have a lot of topics to touch on today, from the transparency report, the roadmap, ALGORAND strategy, the state of crypto, and all the things. But to be on brand here, and as promised, I do want to start this interview off spicy. I'm talking blazing challenge spicy, picture on the wall at Buffalo Wild Wings spicy. A little while back, your X account, unfortunately, was compromised by someone. And I have been dying to ask you about it. A lot of people have been, wondering, what was the deal there? What happened? So without going too far into the rabbit hole, give us a quick overview on what happened. And did we ever find out who did it?
Yeah. So, there's a couple of investigations going on, and everything I say is like alleged, of course, right? But I was if you follow the strict chronology of things, and my phone was never out of my sight. It's never been out of my sight. But I was in a Verizon store buying a little iPad thing. And after I left that store, Verizon started getting a lot of phone calls saying, oh, I lost my phone. I know my PIN. So I think it might have been viewed in the store. I know my PIN. And could you please transfer this account to this iPhone? And, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not sure how that got to crypto exactly, but maybe, there's a marketplace. I don't know. And then, of course, there's 10 people working at Twitter to fix this problem, right? And I do want to say that when we finally got somebody, it took us, more than 24 hours to finally get somebody at Twitter. But once we did, she was very nice, and she really did try. So they're just a bit overwhelmed over there, and they've gutted a little bit the customer service around this stuff. So that was this other aspect to it. I got to say though, this SIM swap thing is a little bit terrifying, and Brad Garlinghouse, I'm feeling a bit lucky. Brad Garlinghouse got 100 million in XRP hacked SIM swap last week or the week before. So I was unhappy about it. I'm still unhappy about it, but I'm feeling like I got off a little bit, easy. They didn't take any of my crypto or anything like that. They just, I was listening to a podcast on Friday, and one of the co-hosts made a very, very good point. I thought this virtual SIM swapping thing is so endemic in our industry. And if this was any other industry, they would have done something about it by now. They would have come down and they would have, taken these mobile companies to task, and they would have actually figured out a way to fix this for us. But, crypto is maybe just not important enough And they don't care, but it happens a lot in our industry, and they need to figure out a way to make this safer. Now, of course, I was kind of a knucklehead, of course, too, right? Not to have the 2-factor authentication, but yeah, that's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, like unfortunately, well, first, I'm glad the issue was resolved, first of all. And unfortunately, some people are just up to no good. And, people like you, Brad Garlinghouse, get targeted for these kinds of things, and certainly it's unfortunate. I'm glad it's over and we can move forward. And moving forward, without, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the guy that hacked into FTX, like almost the day that they shut down. I remember it because I was listening to the Up Only podcast, and like during the podcast, they had a guy from FTX on. During the podcast, FTX was getting hacked, and it didn't make so much noise because there's so much chaos generally going on there. But he calls himself El Swapo, because he's like, and he's actually in court now, I think. So I mean, it's just nonsense what happens and stuff.
Yeah, it's just a part of it. In my interview with Lehman, he made a really good analogy. He said, with a hammer, you could use a hammer to hit someone, and that's bad, or you could use a hammer to build a house, and that's good. And and that's just really, it is what you make it with these things. And I don't really blame you or Brad Garlinghouse, or Ben was SIM swapped as well. I mean, it's serious. The people are targeting people like you and Brad Garland. It happens. It's unfortunate, but I'm glad we're past it. I want to keep it moving. I don't want to stay on this for too long. We have so many questions to get through, and I know you're not feeling 100%. Well. So okay. 100%. So without any ranch dressing or any blue cheese, without any celery, no water, I want to go to the next question. And of course, It has to do with the transparency report. First off, I want to say how much I actually, I do appreciate the quarterly transparency reports. It really should be an industry standard, in my opinion.
It's the best transparency report in crypto. Yeah. I'm going to say that. And you know that too. I mean, it is really, it was pretty terrible before. Like there was just it was just like a lot of words and verbiage. And I mean, I would read that thing and I'm like, I just don't understand what information we're conveying about this. They need to know like where, under what, category money is being spent. That's what they want to know. And then like, we should brag about some stuff that happened during the quarter too. So.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. A lot of, especially, Q4 last year, even on the Massaro report, there was a lot of really, bullish narratives for Algorand, with new people coming in, the market cap going up and to the right, a lot of really good positive things, especially, even with the roadmap coming. Personally, I'm very excited for AlgoKit and people being able to develop in Python, all that. But, to get into the question with the transparency report is sometimes when you pull back the curtain for everyone to see, sometimes there is a little bit of controversy waiting for you there on the other side. And the part of the transparency report, obviously shrouded in controversy, is the deal with Arrington Capital. And I know there's stuff, with NDAs and all, but Staci, what can you tell us about what happened there?
I can't really tell you too much about it. We were an LP in the fund, and we're under an NDA with the fund, we have to explain the money that we spend, right? That's the point of the transparency report. And so we invited, we invited Arrington to not have the NDA, and we didn't mean that to be particularly provocative, honestly, but you can't violate an NDA, so we're not going to do it. We can't do it. We do feel some obligation to tell the community what we're up to. So we tried to walk that line. Maybe we didn't. We're a bit surprised by all of the, but this is a community that gets, they get energized quite quickly about things. I should have realized, but yeah. So, I think it's died down a bit, but.
Yeah, for sure. And then, I definitely understand. This is why we do the transparency report. Would the Algorand family rather have been in the dark on that or have seen it and known about it? And, I think being upfront and transparent about each and everything, good or bad, that's a part of it. This, at the end of the day, crypto, it's the business world. And sometimes the business world, things don't always go to plan, but it's not the end of the world either. You know what I mean? So I think that people would much more do appreciate seeing it than being left in the dark. And that's for sure. And I definitely see that, I don't feel that they held up their end of the deal. And I don't feel like you guys are in the wrong on this at all. That's the way I see it. So
I mean, I don't think it gives us a free pass, though, the transparency report. And I do want to make sure I say that. Like, if you are, cheating on your wife, say, and you come home and you're like, look, I'm telling you, I cheated on you, like, but I'm being transparent. Like I told you, honey, it doesn't mean like it's okay. So we are, we don't want to be like that in general. I'm not talking about the Arrington thing. I just mean like in general, we are going to put stuff, we're airing some laundry in that thing, some of which we're not, we didn't do so well, some of which we're not so proud of, some of which was great. But the point is, like, it's Web3. You gotta, it's community money, right? So we gotta tell it all as we can.
Yeah, I mean, that's very brutally honest point that I love that you made that point. It's completely true. And I just think I've always seen Algorand taking the best foot forward with these things in terms of, when things kind of go sideways. I've always felt that Algorand has been very good at rolling with the punches. And anytime there's like a problem, Algorand is very quick to come up with a solution. This is something I've talked at length about in several of my videos. So, I do want to say, I mean, Staci, I have you here. I don't want to just talk about all the hard stuff. I want to really pick your brain on what's happening in crypto right now. And you nailed 2 back-to-back spicy questions out of the park. I mean, no wonder you're the CEO.
I want some blue cheese sauce.
Yes, I definitely need some carrots, something, maybe some Pepsi.
Carrots. Yeah.
So it's all making sense now. So Staci, zooming out a bit, I mean, Bitcoin hit 50,000 this week. This is the highest we've ever seen Bitcoin pre-halving in a phase of quantitative tightening. We're not really quantitatively easing, and this is insane conditions for pre-halving. So I want to ask, what are your overall thoughts on the crypto market? And how do you see it shaping up over the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think the ETF thing with Bitcoin cannot be underestimated because if you think about registered investment advisors, RIAs, they buy ETFs for their clients. They buy ETFs for their clients, and everybody who's sort of 50 to 70 now, they use registered investment advisors, and that's a lot of money. That's trillions and trillions of dollars. Now, only and if those RIAs say just a tiny allocation to crypto, it's always going to start with Bitcoin, of course. Just for diversification purposes, a tiny allocation that ends up being a lot of money, even if it's only 1% or 2% of portfolios, right? And I think the technical design of the ETFs now are not optimal. So it gets a little weedy, but they could be done, I think, a little bit better. And so the next generation of these ETFs, I think, are going to be there's going to be a lot more participation from these things. So I think that's super important. The second thing is that we need to, right now we've got good pilots everywhere. I can talk about my ecosystem, right? But so if you look at, TravelX, right? They have spent time, making sure that they are, signing up airlines, et cetera. They have 2 airlines, but fast forward, those guys hustle, right? Fast forward a couple of years from now, they're going to have, 10, 20, 25, 50 airlines, right? And you can say that across the ecosystem. Right now, we're very much, I would say, not entirely, but very much, I would say, in the pilot phase. And so those pilots need to kind of work out, find their footing, and then you can see this kind of explosive growth in usage, right? I think also what takes time is, getting properly regulated, right? And so as companies do, there's a lot of first mover disadvantage in this. It takes a lot of time. I mean, the guys at Quantos, they spent, almost 3 years getting regulated, right? And so, but as more companies come on, then the regulators have seen this before. They get more comfortable with it. And then in a couple of years, like the next Quantos that comes along, it's like, okay, yeah, we've seen this before. We're comfortable. It, probably won't take 3 years, right? So, I know this is almost a cliche in crypto now, but we're so early. And the thing is, we are so early, right? And so for us, it wasn't our, this is not a very motivating goal, but, we needed to get through this crypto winter, right? And so the survivors that survive are going to be around and stronger. And we say this for ourselves and also for the companies building on Algorand to take advantage of a more benign, environment and more and more broad public kind of awareness of the the tech is just so good. There's just so much nonsense out there in financial services, just to use one kind of example. But of course, you can also talk about supply chain, right? Somebody said to me once, and I thought this was a really great thing. financial services, it's croquet. You look at it from the front and it looks clean and perfect, but you look in the back and it's like a mess, and it's just like this kludgy mess of stuff. And that kludgy mess of stuff does not need to be there. A blockchain just makes it so much easier with instant settlement and atomic swaps and all of that, and clearing equals settlement on the blockchain, right? So you don't have to have the SWIFT clearing process and then the correspondent banking settlement process. It's just too good of a technology for the world to ignore it. But we just got to keep pushing forward on it, So yeah, I'm bullish.
Wow, that was really good point. A couple of things you said there. I really like what you said about the first mover disadvantage. A lot of times in markets, we kind of hear in the DeFi summer back in the day, like the coins that came out first got the gains first, and everyone said like first mover advantage. But in terms of regulation, first mover disadvantage, because they have to go through the blender. They have to go through the ringer when everyone else can show up in the back of the line and walk straight through because they didn't have to deal. That's a very good point. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, copying what the first person did. So the rules a little bit. Okay, those guys were approved. So what did they do? What does it look like? I'll just use that, which is fair enough, right? But it's, my point is more that it's getting easier, not that, that anybody's free riding.
Yeah, 100%. So, I'm certainly also overall very bullish on crypto moving forward, Bitcoin, everything. I mean, we've never seen conditions like this pre-halving. We couldn't really be asking for a better scenario when people, when we consider the ETF and the institutional attention that we're getting mixed with, the Bitcoin halving and what generally happens in the market cycle itself. When people start throwing around the word super cycle, my eyebrows raise up a little bit because I do see the big picture. I think it's possible, especially if, there's some phase of quantitative easing paired with that as well. We've never been through a bull run in a phase of quantitative tightening. So I do want to ask, with, this bullish projection in mind for the overall crypto market, zooming in, where do you see Algorand in, a year or two? And what's the strategy to get us there?
Yeah, so we have so obviously, I have said before, top 5 in 25. I mean, that's a very aspirational goal, of course, right? But we just gotta keep moving up the ranks and everything and we have good numbers on things like monthly active wallets and that kind of thing, but we need to keep moving up the ranks and algo denominated TVL, very strong, right? So we need to just keep moving up the ranks in terms of the size of this. I call it Planet Algorand, and our planet needs to get bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Like that's the job, right? To be. And so when we think about it internally, we think about it as the big 6. And just by the way, I cannot think of an acronym that will use the first letter of all of these words. So if anybody writes it down and you come up with a good acronym for us, then you'll get a prize. I guess. So, okay. So the first thing is in terms of our goals. These are not force ranked, but we have to do. First is adoption. So we've got to drive real world use cases, big bets that on things that are important. So, and maybe this was an error on my part, but I have never let us announce things that are kind of vaporware. And so we have missed a little bit of some of this like false stuff that people just and that make a big deal out of something that isn't really anything. But I do think that the market generally is much more skeptical of stuff like that now. So I think the era for that is kind of coming to a close. But anyway, obviously we need to get these kind of high value implementations. So that's adoption. Number 2 is prosperity. The protocols and the companies building on Algorand need to be successful and grow and become rich, right? And so that is very much, and as we talk a lot about our bear hug strategy, we absolutely need to make that happen and do whatever we can to help that happen. Number 3 is, and I use this word in a very secular sense, but we need to cultivate religion. And by religion, I mean that people are irrationally passionate about the Algorand ecosystem. And I think that we're pretty good there already. I mean, I think we have I'll tell you one funny thing about this hacker. So he was DMing a couple of his friends on my DM. So I have all of these DMs and he's like, boy, these guys are on fire. These algo guys, they're just so they're just so relentless. Like they're such maxis. Like they're really crazy. These algo, I'm like, yep, that's my community. That's my algo fam. Yep. So, but anyway, that kind of religion is really important. And then 4th is, and as everybody knows, we've got to get more awareness. We need to be top of mind. We need to be in the zeitgeist. We need to be talked about. We're not being talked about in the way that we need to. And that is like absolutely a priority. Fifth is we need to move to a more of an open source kind of ethos in this community and in product development. And that means, protocols having their own code be open source. It also means sharing responsibility for things like, and, to speak very bluntly, not blaming the foundation. Like every time something goes wrong, I mean, we have like sometimes people on Twitter that, a protocol will have a problem and it's like at Staci Warden, why did, shouldn't you have done this on testnet more? And like that, it's like kind of like, that's not Web3, right? Web3 is like, you are decentralized, there's nobody, and you're kind of responsible for yourself. And so that's very important to us. And also a lot of the work that Bruno's doing on standards would be very important for this. And then last is sustainability and decentralization, right? And this is where the incentivizing consensus is going to be so important. So we've started this march towards decentralization in that our grants program is now managed by the community. We are still building the tool. And of course, that is our responsibility to build this tool and make it easier for them. So we're going to spend these 3 quarters doing it. We gather feedback. It doesn't work as well as it could in some places and the rules, but the rules are set by the community already, right? So we've got to get adoption. The protocols building have to be prosperous. We've got to keep driving religion. We need this awareness. We have to inculcate and cultivate this open source idea, and we need to just continue on our march to decentralization. That's it. That's all we got to do.
Just those 6 things. Nothing else. I think that's really good. I think we could easily. I'll get back to you with an acronym. I think I can think of one for sure. I noticed, with decentralization, open source, awareness, open source, you could say DAO and then make something DAO out of that. As I already saw that. The Brat DAO, the Prab. I don't know. I'll find it. I'll move the letters around.
I'm open to changing a word or two too, if we can keep the same meaning and it makes for a good acronym. Totally, I'm open for that. And then we don't have time to go through this, but we have force ranked strategic priorities and force ranked operational priorities for the next 3 years and for this year. So we're pretty tight ship on that kind of thing. So just like trying to march forward step by step by step. Yeah, for
sure. And when you look at the tech for ALGORAND and how fast it is, how it's getting faster over time, not to throw any shade, not to throw any hate, but I kind of still can't believe how many people are still using Ethereum at the level they're using Ethereum. And I'll tell you why. This isn't throwing shade, this is just an observation. A couple days ago, my friend, he put out a tweet that said, like, I just sent $100 on Ethereum. It took 10 minutes. It cost me $12. And you're reading that tweet made me want to pull my hair out. He had to wait 10 minutes and it cost him $12 over $100 transaction. With ALGORAND, obviously that would have cost less than a penny and he only would have had to wait 2.9 seconds. Like, hello. So my question is, how do we get the people who are already in crypto into the algo fam? Like, how do we get them to see the true value prop here?
Yeah, I think one of the really core things about markets is that liquidity begets liquidity. And so even if it's a QWERTY keyboard that's not a good keyboard, people use the QWERTY keyboard because like everybody else is using it, right? And in finance, it's even more so. But we have, two ways that we think about this. One is how do we attract people that aren't in crypto, and how do we attract people that are in crypto? And to attract the people that are in crypto, we have like kind of, I would say probably 4 or 5 things we need to do. First, we need to make sure, and I have a team of 3 people working on this, a director level guy working on making sure that the algo, the USDCA and the ASAs are available wherever everything else is available. Like that we're on exchanges, that we're in the wallets, that I know when USDCA, like I know that on Coinbase, right? Like I know that's an issue. We have to just keep, this can be very expensive though, right? Like it can be expensive to get this stuff done. So, but we just absolutely have to get through that to, make sure that happens. And we've made a lot of progress on that, of course, since I've been here. Second, though, we have to go where they are. We have to go, like we're going to ETH Denver, running a student hacker house. We're pretty excited about this. at the end of February. We were at La BitConf in November. So we are very much like going to the other ecosystems. And I'm not saying we're unique in doing that. I mean, a lot of people go to Denver, but we're very careful to make sure that we're seen in other places. The St. Meritz Conference was another thing about that. Like that conference is very exclusive conference, right? They accept 16% of the applications. We are, they only let 250 people in, but all the best investors go to this conference. And we are the main sponsor of that conference, right? And so we just make sure that we're there. And that was a bit, I was invited to speak there before I was the head of ALGORAND, just as a person that you understood. And so on the back of that, we cultivated this relationship. So stuff like that is super, super important. And the last piece, I think, is that we need to have a reputation for being good to our builders and being good to, and so like, oh, ALGORAND, they take care of their builders. They help them, not just, by giving like grants, but by helping them with their other business needs that they have. We treat them like businesses, not like protocols, right? So how are you going to do financial forecasting? How are you going to think about compliance? What are you going to do on this? Like, how can we help? Can we do bulk purchasing of finance software that maybe all protocols can use? That kind of thing is going to be a really important part of our strategy so that we get a little bit of that reputation. Maybe the ecosystem is smaller over there, but they're well cared for, and so that's how I think about it. And then, of course, it's going to be important to have a grassroots strategy, right? Influencers, making sure we do podcasts, making sure we're out there. We have just signed on with Needle PR, really, really great PR firm. And so we're expecting to do, I had a PR firm before that they didn't understand. They're a big financial firm, but they didn't understand crypto. It's just not the same thing. You need a PR firm that understands what you're about and what the ecosystem is about. So that kind of stuff is it's like blocking and tackling stuff, I think.
Yeah. No, I mean, for sure. I feel like, all the pieces are there. And I also feel like, as an influencer myself, I really kind of know where the state of crypto is at. Someone who's really has followed, other very large influencers in the space. I know what the views for a video should be for a top influencer now and what they used to be back in 2021. And we're talking two completely different stories. Well, yeah, it's much lower now. Much lower now for still the top people in the game. So it's one of those things that I feel when that kind of excitement comes back, when retail fully comes back. I mean, we're still pre-halving, and I kind of feel like that is the story, for a lot of the visibility for a lot of crypto projects as well, because not as many people were watching all the top influencers like they used to back when crypto was pumping, but then retail will come back, and that consequently will kind of. I even saw this when I was doing research on ALGORAND for a video I did a couple weeks ago. You notice like from what, like January of 2021 to March of 2021, like a couple $100 million just flows into market caps. Like it happens very fast. And like, I think when we kind of see, like, not to get into price predictions or anything, but when we see that kind of quick exponential run up, I feel like the visibility will exponentially multiply, for crypto projects and crypto YouTube channels as well. I think they're all interconnected from retail attention. So I feel like the pieces are there. It's just a matter of being systematic and consistent, just like anything else. So,
but this is kind of not your question, because you said people that are already in crypto. But if you think about people that are not in crypto, like, we're doing a education program with the UN, for example. They just told us they expect 10,000 people to watch our course on what is blockchain, how does it, of course, ALGORAND is the example, right? And so we are, through this course, doing the basics, but also the lectures on this course are a lot of the protocols on ALGORAND that they're going to give their own. So it gives them exposure as the example of, of the thing that we're trying to teach, right? So that's the kind of thing. I was so surprised by that. 10,000 people, like, no, but they need a blockchain 101. My aunt said to me, are you still in crypto? I thought they arrested that guy, and like, and, when you think about like stuff like that, you just realize there's so much education to do. There's just so much broad education to do. The job is just, but when people start understanding, then they start seeing the value of it. And,
Yeah. I feel like, it happens slow, but it happens fast at the same time. I was thinking about, like, the evolution of music, from 8-track players to cassette tapes to CDs to iPods to streaming. Like, there was an educational process for everybody as the technology got better and better. And I kind of feel like the same thing's happening right now with finance. And it's just going to take a little bit more time. It's a little bit more involved, but I feel like it's certainly going to happen. It's just a matter of time, in my opinion. So,
yeah, but crypto's not ruining Christmas. Streaming music ruins Christmas because you can't give CDs for Christmas presents anymore. It's terrible.
That's actually I used to give people CDs and like box sets of DVDs, like The Sopranos DVD box set. What happened to that?
I know, ruining Christmas.
The Grinch is streaming. All right, so that's so funny. All right, so Staci, we started off pretty spicy, but I do want to have some fun. I want to play a game of pros and cons. And of course, starting with the pros, because I want to have fun. Give me 3 pros for Algorand's tech.
3. Okay. So number 1, 2, and 3 is that we have instant finality. I mean, I just cannot overemphasize. We are the only blockchain that when you send a transaction, it is final immediately. It is deterministic. It's random and also deterministic. So, but number 4, I would say, we've got everything that we need in layer 1, right? So you can have smart contracts are programmable in layer 1, ASAs are in layer 1, atomic transfers, rekeying, everything is in the layer 1. You don't need all of this to use your blockchain example of earlier. You don't need all of that they have to do, right? And I think the third, I hate saying this, but it's resilient. Like we haven't had any downtime. I do sort of feel like I tempt the gods every time I say that, but yes, I'm gonna go with that as my number. This is my number 3. And then of course we're still working on this, but we have the post-quantum cryptography now. So the history of the chain is post-quantum secure, and of course we're very proud of that. And when I say we, I mean our cryptographers, not our management. Yeah.
Certainly. I mean, I think like quantum resistance is a thing, like we don't really think about it now, but there will be a point in time where that's really going to matter. And I don't really know the timeline on quantum computers, but it is certainly something to consider that people, it's kind of like AI, like before ChatGPT, it was just kind of like an idea, but then we actually all got to like use it and see what it could do. I think a similar type story will be the case for quantum computers. So we got 3 pros. What about 3 cons or ways we could improve?
Oh, well, the road, you're giving me a way to talk about a roadmap, but I think the first problem that we have, and we are of course we're in the 7th inning of solving this, is that, it's just very hard to deal with PyTeal, right? So we need a Python environment, and we're going to roll out another language at the end of the year. When I first came, I went on this listening tour. I expected to hear a bunch of different things, and really everybody just complained about how, you're the guys building the protocol in Boston, they care very much about the protocol, but they don't really care about the developer experience. And, John Woods, in our very first interview, we talked about the importance of like having this developer experience, and they've been working pretty hard with MakerX. Want to give a shout out to those guys. And so we're going to roll that out. But like the easier it is to use and the better, the next iteration of that as well is of course the Para wallet, right? Like the easier that thing is to use, the more that it can do, the better the UI on it. That's going to be, it's like, I call it kind of excuse elimination. So we got to just make sure we keep chipping away at that stuff. The second thing I think is really, in fact, I might even make this the first thing, is that we don't incentivize consensus. And so Silvio has a very purist view about this, which I don't disagree with actually, that, if you're going to use a network, you have a responsibility as a good citizen to uphold the security of that network. Well, as it turns out, though, people respond to incentives, right? And so we have a governance program where people complain about, are these votes really as meaningful as they could be? And people are running relay nodes and they're not getting compensated. And now we move to a situation where, the relay nodes are the foundation does, of course, compensate many of them for running relay nodes. But if we have now a system where you stake algos and you are compensated for that, for keeping this network secure, that helps with the decentralization and it helps with the security of the network. So that is like super, super important, I think. And then I think I like the dynamic round times. We've got to get everything a bit more efficient, a bit faster. I like this idea that you don't have to wait if you don't need to for the block. And then, on the TPS, I think going from, I think it was 1,200 or 1,400 when I got here to 2,500, then to 6,000, that kind of like didn't matter. That's just not enough, so it was great, because they were making progress on their roadmap, but it's not until you get to 10,000 transactions per second that you actually can say anything or can do anything and can scale in any way, right? And so now that we have that, we can start thinking about the things we care about around micropayments and stuff like that, right? But it's great to go from 2 to 6, but it's also not meaningful in a way.
So, Staci, I love how when, we pros and cons, and the cons are all things that are getting worked on, that are in progress, that are developing. And that's what I've always said about Algorand. Anytime there's a problem, you've always rolled with the punches. I've always found a solution to whatever it is that, you want to improve upon. And I just love how you frame that. I would give you my, go ahead.
No. I would just say, because our bedrock belief is that, this tech is so good. This is the blockchain that everybody should use. So we have to just get rid of the friction around it, right? Solve problems around it. And then it'll speak for itself.
Yep, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I would give you my pros and cons, but we don't have 3 hours to get through the pros, so I'm just going to pivot to the next question. So I know the search for a new CMO has been going on for a little while. I can't imagine how difficult searching for the right person, how difficult that could be. Not at all an easy role to take on. Marketing crypto is, one of the most difficult things probably in the world, in my opinion. So my question is, how is the search going, and where do I send my application?
You've got the job. The search is over. It's yours. It's yours. I don't know if I'm gonna want you to do the side hustle all the time, though. You might have to give some of that up, but.
I'm joking, of course.
I also don't want to, of course, I don't want to throw shade, but I cannot mess up this hire. I cannot do it. Like, I cannot mess up this hire, right? And so I have to take my time, and we have 3 now good candidates, and we're working with Intersection Growth Partners, and I got to say, they keep bringing us really good candidates. And so I've met a lot of people. I've probably met maybe almost 10 people so far. And we've got 3 people we're excited about. But the thing is, I have the luxury of taking my time because we have a very good head of marketing, vice president of marketing now. And her name is Alexa Carr. And she went on maternity leave last year for 5 months. And we all kind of fell apart a little bit when she did that. But she's the brainchild behind, the chess roadmap, and the brand and the look and all of this stuff. And she's just terrific. And so I feel quite lucky that I have the luxury of getting the absolute right person in the next time. It's a big priority for me, of course. And the thing is, the pressure's on, right? Because we've got the Algo Kit launch, right? We have the roadmap. We need the perfect marketing person who can talk about, who knows product marketing, who can talk to a community, who can talk on retail sales for some of the stuff, the more BD type stuff we're trying to do. I mean, it's a tricky hire, right? So.
Yeah,
I agree. The marketing person, when they come, though, everybody, hello, be nice, all of you.
Yes, everybody play nice. No one's perfect. We're learning. No, I agree. That is very serious pair of shoes to fill to get in there. And but honestly, to be fair, I feel even without a CMO at the moment, that you guys have still done a pretty good job. Look at what has come out since there has been no CMO. I still feel like it it kind of is a testament to the pre-existing team and the structures there, how well things have gone while you're still trying to find that very crucial role. I think it is a testament to the rest of the team, to be honest.
And I will also say, for those in my Twitter feed that are not Python developers, if you're not seeing the marketing, it's because we're not marketing to you. We're marketing to Python developers. And so the fact that you don't see things, you also have to kind of ask yourself, am I the intended audience? And are they doing actually a very good job of audience targeting? And of course, we need the broader, of course, right? And so we're not giving up on that, but we're trying to be very surgical about going after these full stack Web 2 type. And there's only like 10 million of them, right? Like, so we just need to convince a few of them. We got to go where they are, and where they are is not necessarily where we are as an algo fam community, right?
Yeah, no, certainly. I am looking forward to seeing who you guys pick, and how the adjustment phase there. And of course, I hope everyone is receptive and open-minded. And I feel like it will go over. I feel like you guys are you know what you're doing. That's what I'm saying. You know what you're doing.
We try.
Yeah.
I will tell you that I will put this new marketing head on your show. How's that?
Perfect. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Yep. The day after they get hired, they're coming on the live stream, and we're putting them through the ringer. Day one. Welcome to crypto. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. So, I do want to zoom out and talk about a few projects building on Algorand. I know that the tokenization of assets and, RWAs, very big narrative in Algorand. And in that field specifically, what project or projects stand out to you?
Well, I keep talking about TravelX. I mean, I just love this company. I mean, it's because, you know why? It's creating a market that doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist yet, right? It's creating a new market. It's not taking a slice of the pie away from somebody else. It's new. It's a win-win, right? So this idea that you can trade on a second, you should go to the Flybondi website. The website is full of like airline tickets for sale. People are selling to each other these tickets. And that is one kind of tokenization that I think is super, super important. It's not fractionalization though, because a ticket's a ticket, right? But I also think there's a lot in fractionalization of assets too, right? So this idea that you can be an investor in a large thing that you never had access to before because you can tokenize it and you can be an investor at just a little bit of a fraction of it, right? And so there's a lot of examples on Algorand of that, right? I think about Control Alt. None of us have ever invested in alternative investments, right? Because if you're not an accredited investor, you're not an institution, you don't have access to that kind of thing. Right. This is like a power to the people kind of thing. The lofty AIs, the Control Alts, right? The Vesta equities, right? Like this is all stuff that, and not to mention just, as I was saying before, the back office and the settlement stuff just gets much more efficient and more secure, right? So these are the kinds of things I think are super serious. The stuff that Algorand Labs is doing with the Central Bank of Italy, they're in this incubator. And, what they're trying to do there is have on the back of the government bond market, tokenizing bonds and tokenizing fiat, euro fiat, and so that you can do an atomic swap for bonds, for sovereign bonds. And technically that's not super hard to do, right? But regulatorily, as you can imagine, they're taking their time, they're being very cautious, they're going very slowly, right? So a lot of this stuff, back to what we started in the beginning of the conversation, it's not so much about the technology, it's about getting the environment right. And sometimes you just have to wait for the environment to catch up, I might be about to sneeze, but I'll...
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. So I think it's a really good answer. And you're right. Like, things are like the market's almost not even there yet. It's kind of like a band that was like before its time and it wasn't appreciated yet, and then, I feel like there's a good analogy there, but certainly we'll be looking forward to that narrative growing. I saw some like currently the RWA market cap in crypto is like 260 billion, but it's projected to be like 30 trillion by 2030 or some absorbently high number like that. Maybe it was like 15 trillion. I forget the exact statistic, but I feel like we have a long way to go between A and B, but I certainly feel like the tokenization of assets is certainly going to be a heavy narrative. And I think any project that's, doing a good job pulling that off is going to be a big winner, Algorand included. So,
right. Yeah. You have to have instant finality. I mean, you have to have instant finality to do this. You are not going to sell something and give up your good, tokenized or not, and then think, oh, maybe the payment didn't come through. I thought it came through, but it didn't because, it was on the wrong side of the, soft fork, right? Like that's just not a thing. And so, we have inevitability on our side, I think.
Yeah. Algorand is inevitable. I love it. So, I saw this photo of you floating around last month with an Algorand Foundation ice sculpture. What was that about? Was it some flaky party?
Yeah,
Why was I not invited? What happened there?
Well, this is the St. Meritz thing that we are the sponsors for 3 years for the St. Meritz Conference. And as I said, I go to these because I have lived my career in finance, right? So I go to these finance conferences. I still get invited to them. And the crypto stuff is just weak, really weak, I got to say. And then you go to crypto conferences with some exceptions, but the hardcore finance stuff is a bit weak, right? This kind of digital assets and how Point Zero Form is an exception and St. Meritz is an exception to that. And so they've got a very nice niche. And as I said, they always invited me to speak. And then when they found out that I, was now the CEO of the ALGORAND Foundation, they approached me about this sponsorship. Very, we're not going to tell you what our sponsorships cost, but very reasonably priced. And for that, we get a couple of tickets and we get to sit on a panel and moderate a panel. So we have some speaking slots. And in addition to that, I get to give this speech on the final night. And then they do this big dinner. And he kept telling me, we have a surprise for you. Is a surprise for you? Because you want signage in this thing. So I was like, oh, is ALGORAND signage up? And he's like, oh, don't. And so when I got to give this speech, and then everybody goes downstairs, the dinner is in the kitchen. And then in the dessert room where he made the assumption that everybody's going to go to the dessert room, at least he made this ALGORAND. It was a gift to us. So we didn't pay for this or anything, it was an ALGORAND ice sculpture. And he said, how's this for signage? I was like, okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, actually. And he said, I was just doing a recap with him a couple of days ago, and he said it was the most viral video that they've released on St. Meritz. So that was good too,
Yeah, that was pretty. When I saw that, I was like, "Look at that!" I mean, I've always been kind of fascinated by that, so I found that very cool.
It obviously, a little fishy, but it wasn't really like that. It was this conference, and then like this conference. I mean, honestly, like you come out of an elevator, and like the founder of Uniswap was walking out of the elevator. I'm like, oh, okay, I mean, it's like really like an OG kind of place. That conference.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Honestly, speaking of conferences, I'm excited for Decipher. I think Decipher is going to be. I've never been to Barcelona before. I've never been over that way. I thought really looking forward to that. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. And it's gonna be really like the on the ground bear hug is going to be for developers, for builders, for entrepreneurs, and we are going to do much less panels and many more workshops around. What is it that that people need to grow their businesses. That's like the idea of this conference. Of course, we'll have the dev track too, of course, but like roll up your sleeves, kind of a working conference. You're still invited though, even if you're not running a company.
Yes, I'm invited. I made the cut. I'm so excited. 100%. Couldn't be more. Yep. Well, Staci, I do want to say, thank you so much for your time. It means the world to me that you did this interview, especially being sick. I do want to thank you. I want to thank John, JT, everyone at the ALGORAND Foundation for making this possible. And of course, the Algo fam. I mean, it would not be possible without the ALGORAND family. And so, in that is my final question for you. If you were not the CEO of the ALGORAND Foundation and you were just another person, another community member in the Algo fam, what would you do to try to help get the community more traction? Like, what would be the objective? Because I feel like the ALGORAND family, like we have this powerful tool, this amazing community with all these really smart people. And I just feel like we just need like something to get us all together on some sort of initiative. Like, I just feel like there's something there and just to use the tool we already have. You see what I'm saying? I feel like there's something there. And I don't know what it is yet. I'm fishing right now. I'm brainstorming.
Yeah. I mean, I think first thing I would do is start an initiative to say, everybody, we need to be really nice to the CEO. That would be my very first project.
I like that. I like that.
I think it's positive and negative. And I think on the net, meaning avoiding negative, I think so. This might not be a super popular comment to make, but in the last Decipher, we had a couple of influencers. This one guy, I won't mention names, but he had like something like 800,000 Instagram followers, and he tweeted something like, "Well, you can tell the geeks are here because of the smell," or something. And he tweeted a couple of things about, I think it was XRP too, while he was there. A lot of good things about the conference. All of this, and I don't know if he was the right influencer to invite or not. Like, I don't know. He could have been wrong. But he's got a lot of followers, and this community got so mad about that smell comment. They were just trashing him in his Twitter feed the entire conference. And it was like, this is not helpful. Like we're trying to get exposure. We're trying to be a community that people want to come to. We can't have like all of these new people think we're like a toxic, mean community, right? So like, I think we do need to do a better job at that. But positively, I would say, you got to stake algos, right? Like that is your number one responsibility is to stake algos when we start incentivizing consensus. Then you are really doing work that is upholding the security of this network. And that is super. And then I just want to give like a shout out to all the connectors. I mean, there's guys like you, and there's guys that, share information around the ecosystem for sure. But there's also people that are just like introducing people, connecting people, making sure people know each other. And I keep thinking, I wonder if there's a way to maybe facilitate that more. So that might be something that I would do if I was not the CEO. I would say, how can we just make sure, like, if you, we have a rudimentary jobs board, but like, I would maybe build a better one, that has like really anybody looking for a job, and entrepreneurs need developers, and, just really making sure we can connect that thing. And then this open source thing is, I know this is probably a longer answer than you wanted, but this open source thing.
You're good.
So Kelly Callahan, when she was at ALGORAND.com, ALGORAND Inc., ALGORAND Technologies, they call themselves now, she had this great idea to have a website that the community would maintain about the different companies building on ALGORAND. So she kind of gathered it all up together. She had the thing built, gathered them all up together. And she had this very neat mechanism of like, you upvote, you downvote, and this would keep the thing fresh. But people just did not keep this thing active. They did not keep it up. So that was, I think, maybe there was other, but I think that was the first real example of putting a burden out on the community to maintain something for this community. And it was kind of a fail, right? And so now we got to keep driving that. And, with the XGovs, and take the time to read the proposals, vote on the proposals. If you don't have questions, if you have questions about it, form groups, to talk about the different proposals, be smart about it. These are the kind of things, like right now is another example. We're still in the stage where the ALGORAND Foundation forms an advisory committee. I would like to get to the stage where the community is forming a committee and invites the ALGORAND Foundation to the community. So this kind of like community-led responsibility in all kinds of different areas is where if I was in the community, I would start trying to rally some of that stuff, I would say.
Oh, sorry, my mic won't unmute on Twitter. Oh, there we go. My mic wouldn't unmute there for a second, but I completely agree. I mean, first of all, your point about, toxicity, I feel like that's a problem in every community. Unfortunately, it's something I definitely hate seeing. I don't like. It's like if someone researches whatever blockchain and they just see people squabbling amongst themselves, like no one wants to see that. And a lot of time it's just a part of it, unfortunately. And I have always kind of gravitated to it. It's very obvious when you see, like, you kind of look at the whole ecosystem on Twitter, and you see who's working, you see who's building, you see who's grinding every day, and then you see who's complaining. And it's pretty obvious who's who. And that's one part of it. Secondly, I do agree with on Twitter, my mic stopped working on Twitter for some reason, but I'll just finish the interview right here. Okay. But certainly, I think it's a one day at a time thing. And I feel like when more people start to see the big picture, there will be kind of more confluence in like what we could do. I think maybe something like the jobs board, like you said, just something. I just see so much possibility when I think about like everyone in the ALGORAND Foundation. And I do want to continue a brainstorm, like, with you and like JT and John and in the community on like what we can do to like kind of have like a more like, a more united front, something that the community can work and build on together. I just see something there, and I'm brainstorming on it. I haven't put my finger on it yet, but I know it's there. I do.
Well, one thing I think would be really, one thing I think is super cool is this orange thing, the Aura coin. And what is so technically interesting about this is that it's a proof of work coin on top of a proof of stake blockchain, right? So it's super, super interesting. So I love this initiative. And I think getting involved in those kinds of things, it can't be like, Staci, we need a meme coin. like that's not something the foundation does, right? Like the
No.
community has to do stuff like that, and it has to be organic, you know. So I love initiatives like that for sure. I think that one in particular is a really good one. They have definitely kicked us out of this Twitter space, though, haven't they? Elon Musk keeps messing with me.
Yeah, my microphone on the Twitter space kind of keeps muting and unmuting, and I'm not sure. But I do want to say to everybody listening in the Twitter space that this interview is being recorded on the back end, and it will be on YouTube on my channel at AJ Writes Crypto on Saturday. If you're listening to the space and some of it missed or there was any connection issues, if you want to circle back, definitely check out the video on YouTube on Saturday. But Staci, I feel like we got a lot. We've covered everything. We covered every base here. I'm very grateful that you did this interview despite being sick. I really admire your courage. Yeah, and I will circle back, with the community and with you and with everybody and see, what we can do for some sort of community initiative. I think there's something there. I just think we got to, keep brainstorming and put a finger on exactly what it is, because I think we could do something pretty cool, especially with all the brains we have in the Algorand ecosystem. We'll figure something out for sure.
Totally. I love it. Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, AJ. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Staci. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay. Bye-bye.